Hi, this is Coach Johansson, and I'm watching Picks with David here from Bob and Luigi's in Andover, Kansas. I'm ready for some football. Go Bears!
Week 3 in the NFL, and thanks for joining me. You're watching Picks with David. We've got 5 big games to talk about here this week, and we're going to begin in Chicago, where the Houston Texans come to town. Both teams are coming off a loss in week number 2. Chicago lost on Sunday Night Football after getting gouged with the run by the Green Bay Packers, whereas Houston managed to hold down the Denver Bronco offense for a little while, but just couldn't capitalize offensively. Now, Houston is 0-1-1. They managed to secure a tie in Week 1 against the Indianapolis Colts. And, I think that this Houston Texan team is, going to be really good defensively. That's what's going to keep them in games. Lovie Smith's defense has, basically a no-name defense, but there's a lot of really good players that have been brought in over the last couple of years, and they've held down Denver. They managed to secure the tie against the Colts, and I think it's going to keep them in a lot of games this year. Offensively, Davis Mills at quarterback does not have a whole lot of offensive weapons to get the ball to, but he does have Brandon Cooks. And they have a brand new rookie running back in Damon Pierce to tote the rock. And if they can control the clock by running the football and playing great defense, Houston's going to be in a lot of games. So here they come into Chicago, and as I mentioned before, Chicago got gashed by the running game in Green Bay, and I think Damon Pierce can do the same thing. I think that Houston has a good enough offensive line. Chicago is struggling right now defensively because they're working in a new scheme based on the schemes of new head coach Matt Eberflus. And offensively, Justin Fields is very inconsistent at quarterback. I think that, he looks at his first read, and if it isn't there, then he takes off and runs. And having a mobile quarterback has its advantages. But when you're not throwing the football down the field, especially to your tight end, you're not giving yourself an opportunity to stretch the field and be a dangerous offense. And so because of the way these two teams have played in the first 2 weeks of the season, although Chicago's playing at home, I'm going to take the Houston Texans to win our first matchup. It's the Kansas City Chiefs at the Indianapolis Colts. Kansas City comes in on the strength of a defensive touchdown at 2-0, whereas the Colts are 0-1-1. Kansas City's defense bailed them out last week, and they've had 10 days to prepare for the Colts, who are a bit of a walking wounded team. Last week they were shut out by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it could possibly be because both of their top receivers were injured. Now, Michael Pittman's supposed to be back at full strength and will start for the Colts, so that gives Matt Ryan some options down the field. They have an excellent offensive line and a great running game. Everybody's number one pick in fantasy football this year was pretty much Jonathan Taylor, who led the league in rushing last season. Here we've got Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs coming to town, and they've had plenty of time to prepare. They've got an array of wide receivers that have taken over for Tyreek Hill, and the defense is a strength this season. And so for that reason, I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Indianapolis Colts on Sunday. Matchup number 3 is the 1-1 Green Bay Packers at the 2-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Green Bay was demolished in Week 1 by the Minnesota Vikings, but they got their feet underneath them and managed to beat the Chicago Bears on Sunday Night Football. Tampa Bay has beaten both the Dallas Cowboys and had a huge win against a team they really struggled against in the last couple of years in the New Orleans Saints. Tampa Bay's defense looks very good, and they are continuing to be consistent on both sides of the ball. Tom Brady leads a ragtag group of wide receivers as his top targets are all out. We've got Michael Evans is gone due to a suspension. Chris Godwin's out due to injury. So they bring in Cole Beasley to join Julio Jones and slot receiver Scotty Miller as the 3 top targets for Tom Brady. The Buccaneers here have beaten the Green Bay Packers in each of the last 2 matchups, including in the NFC Championship game 2 years ago, which still stings, I'm sure, for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Now, he's got a new array of wide receivers on his team. Sammy Watkins won't be playing, so he's going to have to turn to his rookies in Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. We may see some big plays out of the tight end Robert Tonyan, but the best way for Green Bay to get involved in this game and to dominate would be to use their ground game. They have a 2-headed attack in A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. They were able to mash the Bears, but the Chicago Bear defense and the Tampa Bay defense are 2 different animals. And for that reason, I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win the game Sunday. Sunday Night Football on NBC is the San Francisco 49ers at the Denver Broncos. San Francisco performed poorly in their first game of the season in a monsoon in Chicago, and then they started the game against Seattle with Trey Lance again, and he got hurt running the football. So in comes, as a lot of people expected would end up happening at some point during this season, Jimmy Garoppolo to take back over at quarterback, and he'll be the starter for the rest of the season barring injury. On the other side, you've got Russell Wilson, and his offense has struggled since he's taken over here in Denver. Whether that's the new scheme of Nathaniel Hackett or just the opponents that they're playing defensively, they went up to Seattle in Week 1 and didn't perform well there, and then they opened up at home and performed even worse against the Houston Texans. But they did manage to come out with the win in week number 2. So at 1-1, here they have one of the top teams in the NFC from last year coming to town. San Francisco can run the ball because they have a lot of different runners and a really good offensive line. Now Elijah Mitchell is out, and that means that the rookie running back who is the backup, Wilson, will come in to take his spot. They've got big-time players at wide receiver in Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, and it looks like that George Kittle is going to get an opportunity to play this week as he comes off the injured list. Denver's got a bunch of big-time wide receivers. They've got Cortland Sutton, they've got Jerry Jeudy, and they've got a couple of good tight ends. They've got a dual running back threat with Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. And, you know, I really think that Denver should be able to hold their own in this game. But the way they've been playing early in the season, I'm going to take the San Francisco 49ers to win the game on Sunday Night Football in Denver. Monday Night Football in New York. It's the Dallas Cowboys going into the division-leading New York Giants. The Dallas Cowboys did not look very good against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and along the way, they got their quarterback, Dak Prescott, injured in the game. You know, they're a team that really is predicated on running the ball and establishing that run so that it opens up their passing game. And they let some of their passing weapons go in the offseason. As we saw Thursday night, Amari Cooper lit up the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm sure they think they could really use him back in Dallas. Now, the big surprise here is that the Giants started the season 2-0. They went on the road to Tennessee and managed to come away with a come-from-behind victory against the Titans, and then they held their own against the Carolina Panthers. But now the Dallas Cowboys come to town, and Cooper Rush looked very effective along with the strong running game as they managed to pull a big upset against the AFC champion Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I know that the New York Giants are a team that is finding themselves. They've got new system under head coach Brian Daboll. They have a new defensive coordinator, and the defense has played well and kept them in both the games that they've played thus far. But I think that if the Cowboys run the football effectively and Cooper Rush is able to set up the play-action passing, especially to his favorite target, Noah Brown, I think the Dallas Cowboys could go into New York and beat the New York Giants. So there's your picks. Let's take a look at our Spotlight Players of the Week. Our first Spotlight Player of the game, or of the weekend, I should say, is Michael Pittman of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, Pittman totaled 9 catches for 121 yards and 1 touchdown in Week 1. But he did not play last week due to a quadriceps injury, and presumably his return will give the Colts offense a big boost following their winless start here. Our second Spotlight player is Jeff Wilson Jr., who replaces Elijah Mitchell due to injury. And last week he ran for 84 yards against the Seattle Seahawks, but the Broncos have a much stouter run defense than they have been seeing as far as the 49ers is concerned. However, I am quite certain that the offensive line of the San Francisco 49ers is much tougher than the two teams that the Broncos have faced thus far this season. I think that the 49ers are going to be able to run the football effectively, and you can look for Jeff Wilson Jr. here to make some big plays in the game. So there you have it. There's your Week 3 Picks with David. Thanks for joining me. I hope you're enjoying the videos. If you haven't already liked and subscribed to my videos, please do so. You can follow the links right here to subscribe. And if you check out this over here, you can see all of my preseason predictions from before the year began. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week for Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime.